Imagine you're holding a passport. It has a flag on the cover, your photo, your name. Border guards around the world accept it without question. You've used it to visit over 140 countries. But the country that issued it doesn't officially exist, not on the UN roster, not on most diplomatic maps. And yet 23 million people wake up every morning in this place. They vote, pay taxes, serve in the military. They also build the chips that power your phone, your laptop, and the AI tools reshaping our world. This isn't science fiction. This is Taiwan, and its story is one of the most surreal political dramas on Earth. Welcome to Context Missing, where we explain the world the way no one else will. Let's get into it. Before we talk about Taiwan, we need to ask a basic question. What actually makes a country a country? Most people think it's simple: land, people, government, done. But in the real world, it's far more complicated. International law has something called the Montevideo Convention from 1933. It lays out four requirements: a permanent population, a defined territory, an effective government, the capacity to enter foreign relations. By every single one of those criteria, Taiwan qualifies, full stop. 23 million people, a clear island territory, a functioning democratic government elected by its own citizens. Diplomatic relationships, even if informal, with most of the world's major economies. So, by the legal textbook definition, Taiwan is a state. The problem is, recognition isn't about law, it's about power. And right now, power belongs to Beijing. That's the core of everything we're about to unpack. To understand Taiwan's situation, we need to go back to 1949, one of the most consequential years of the 20th century. China had just finished tearing itself apart. From 1927 to 1949, two factions fought for control of the world's most populous nation. On one side, the Chinese Communist Party, led by Mao Zedong. On the other, the Kuomintang nationalists, led by Chiang Kai-shek. Mao won. In October 1949, he stood in Tiananmen Square and declared the People's Republic of China. Chiang Kai-shek and roughly 2 million soldiers, officials, and civilians fled across the Taiwan Strait. They landed on an island that had spent 50 years under Japanese colonial rule, and they immediately made a bold claim. Chiang said, "We are still the legitimate government of China, the whole of China, not just this island." His government in Taipei called itself the Republic of China, the ROC. Mao's Beijing called itself the PRC. Two governments, both claiming to be the real China, and the world had to pick a side. For 2 decades after 1949, the West backed Taipei, not Beijing. The Republic of China held China's permanent seat on the UN Security Council. Taiwan was voting on global security matters on behalf of all of China. The United States recognized Taipei as the legitimate Chinese government. The Cold War made this simple. Mao was communist, Chiang was anti-communist. But by the late 1960s, U.S. strategists saw an opportunity. The Soviet Union and China were having their own bitter falling out. What if Washington could play Beijing against Moscow? Enter Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger, two men who changed Taiwan's fate forever. In 1971, Henry Kissinger secretly flew to Beijing for back-channel talks. In 1972, Richard Nixon made his historic visit to China. Taiwan was being quietly sacrificed on the altar of geopolitics, and it happened fast. In October 1971, the UN passed Resolution 2758, recognizing the PRC as the only lawful representative of China. Taiwan was expelled from the United Nations, 23 million people gone from the world's most important institution overnight. Then, in 1979, President Carter completed the pivot, formally switching U.S. diplomatic recognition from Taipei to Beijing. Decades of alliance thrown away for strategic convenience, Taiwan was now diplomatically homeless. But here's where America really earns its reputation for creative hypocrisy, or genius, depending on how you look at it. In the same year Carter abandoned Taiwan, Congress passed the Taiwan Relations Act, and this law is extraordinary. It said, "We don't recognize Taiwan as a country, but we will maintain cultural, commercial, and other relations with its people. We will sell Taiwan defensive weapons. We will consider any attack on Taiwan a matter of grave concern." Translation: We don't recognize you, but we'll arm you. And if someone attacks you, we might show up. Maybe. It's the most strategically ambiguous document in modern American foreign policy, and it has held for over 40 years. Every U.S. president since Carter has been asked the same question: if China invades Taiwan, will America fight? The official answer is always strategic ambiguity, which means we're not telling you. Not China, not Taiwan, not the public. Biden has said multiple times that yes, the U.S. would defend Taiwan militarily. His staff immediately walks it back every single time. This ambiguity is a feature, not a bug. If China can't calculate the risk, China has to be cautious. That's the theory anyway. Now let's talk about that passport, because it's one of the most fascinating objects in international diplomacy. The Taiwan passport, officially the Republic of China passport, grants visa-free or visa-on-arrival access to over 140 countries. That's more than passports from Saudi Arabia, India, or China itself. It's a genuinely powerful travel document. And yet, the countries letting you in aren't recognizing Taiwan as a state. They're just letting the passport work, quietly, pragmatically. The EU, UK, US, Japan, Australia all accept Taiwanese passport holders. None officially recognize Taiwan as sovereign. It's recognition by practice, recognition by airport queue, just not recognition by diplomacy. For years, the passport cover said Republic of China, causing confusion at border control in countries that recognized Beijing. So Taiwan redesigned it. They made Taiwan much bigger. Republic of China became a footnote, a quiet, deliberate act of identity. No press release, no diplomatic incident, just a design choice that told the world exactly who they were without asking permission. The passport is a metaphor for Taiwan's entire existence: functional, real, internationally usable, and officially invisible. Taiwan's military is called the Republic of China Armed Forces. It has roughly 165,000 active personnel. It operates U.S.-supplied F-16 fighter jets, its own navy, submarines, and advanced missile systems. Taiwan has mandatory military service. It trains, it drills, it prepares for a Chinese invasion Beijing has never formally ruled out. Now, let's be clear. Taiwan's military is not a match for China's People's Liberation Army, the largest standing army in the world. China has spent decades modernizing specifically with Taiwan invasion scenarios in mind. In a conventional head-to-head, Taiwan loses. But Taiwan's strategy isn't to win a conventional war, it's to make invasion too costly to be worth it. Think porcupine, not tiger. Missiles hidden in mountains, sea mines, drone warfare, and the hope that the U.S. 7th Fleet shows up. Every year, Chinese military jets enter Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, the ADIZ. In 2023 alone, this happened hundreds of times. Each incursion sends the same message: we can do this whenever we want. We haven't forgotten about you. Every time, Taiwan scrambles its own jets to intercept. Two air forces dancing at the edge of a conflict neither side can afford to start. Here's the part that should make every world leader deeply uncomfortable: Taiwan's economic power. Taiwan produces approximately 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductor chips. Not most chips, the most advanced chips. We're talking 3-nanometer transistors, technology so precise it's hard to even conceptualize. One company sits at the center of all this: TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. Founded in 1987, now arguably the most strategically important company on Earth. Apple's iPhone processors? TSMC. NVIDIA's AI chips reshaping entire industries? TSMC. AMD, Qualcomm, Broadcom? TSMC. If TSMC stopped producing tomorrow, Through war, natural disaster, or political crisis, the global tech industry would seize up within months, not years, months. No new iPhones, no new laptops, new cars grinding to a halt. The AI boom everyone's talking about, gone, instantly. Taiwan doesn't have nuclear weapons. It doesn't have a UN veto. It doesn't even have a seat at most international organizations. But it has silicon leverage. The world's most powerful economies are deeply dependent on a country they don't officially recognize. That is the greatest geopolitical irony of the 21st century, and almost nobody talks about it plainly enough. Beijing's position has never been subtle. Taiwan is a rogue province, a civil war wound that hasn't healed. It will be reunified, peacefully if possible, by force if necessary. That last part is written into Chinese law. The Anti-Secession Law of 2005 explicitly authorizes military force if Taiwan declares independence. Or even if peaceful reunification becomes completely impossible. That second condition is deliberately vague and deliberately threatening. Under Xi Jinping, the rhetoric has only intensified. Xi Jinping has called reunification a historical inevitability that must happen by 2049, the centenary of the PRC. We're on a clock, and Beijing's preferred model, one country, two systems, has been destroyed by one city's story. Hong Kong was handed back by Britain in 1997 with promises: keep your freedoms, your free press, your independent courts for 50 years. In 2019, massive pro-democracy protests erupted. Beijing's response was the National Security Law of 2020. Overnight, the free press was dismantled. Opposition politicians were arrested. The 50-year promise was torn up 27 years early. Taiwan was watching, very carefully, and what it saw was a preview of its own potential future. Support for independence in Taiwan has been climbing ever since Hong Kong. Beijing handed Taiwan's independence movement its best recruitment tool. Now here's the question that gets buried under all the geopolitics. What do Taiwanese people actually want? The short answer: most want things to stay exactly as they are. Survey after survey shows 80 to 90% prefer the status quo. Not immediate formal independence, not reunification, just this: a life that works, democracy, a functioning society without a sword overhead. They're not being passive, they're being rational. A formal declaration of independence triggers the anti-secession law. It could trigger war. Most Taiwanese people have built good lives, businesses, and futures. They're not interested in being the flashpoint for World War III. But here's what's also true: Taiwanese identity has been strengthening for decades. In the 1990s, most people on the island identified as Chinese, or both Chinese and Taiwanese. Today, over 60% identify as Taiwanese, not Chinese, especially among younger generations who grew up under democracy. Young Taiwanese don't feel Chinese. They grew up with a free internet, the ability to criticize their government, genuine political choice. They look at mainland China, its censorship, surveillance, social credit scores, and they see a foreign country, not a motherland. This generational identity shift is one of the most underreported stories in Asian politics, and it makes peaceful reunification increasingly fictional. Let me give you one specific, concrete example of Taiwan's absurd diplomatic position: the Olympics. Taiwan competes in the Olympics, but not as Taiwan. It competes under the name Chinese Taipei. It uses a special flag designed just for this compromise, not the ROC flag, but a white flag with Olympic rings and a torch. It cannot play its national anthem. It plays a different song, composed specifically for Olympic ceremonies. Think about what you're seeing: a democracy, a functioning state, 23 million people walking into a stadium under a fake name, fake flag, fake anthem. Because acknowledging Taiwan's real identity would upset China, and the International Olympic Committee has decided that's too expensive. This happens every 2 years, every Olympic Games, and Taiwan's athletes just show up and compete anyway. They win medals anyway. They represent their country anyway, under a name that isn't their country's name. If that doesn't tell you everything about the world's relationship with Taiwan, nothing will. The Taiwan Strait is 180 kilometers wide at its narrowest point, roughly London to Birmingham, New York to Philadelphia. It is, right now, arguably the most dangerous body of water on Earth, not because of weather, because of what could happen if politics breaks down. Military analysts have been wargaming a Chinese invasion of Taiwan for decades. The conclusions are not reassuring. A successful amphibious invasion of Taiwan would be the most complex military operation in history, more complex than D-Day by orders of magnitude. China would need to move hundreds of thousands of troops across open water while Taiwan's military, U.S. forces, and possibly Japan try to stop them. Most analyses suggest China could eventually take Taiwan, but the cost in lives, equipment, and economic damage to China itself would be enormous. And then what? You've occupied an island of 23 million people who don't want you there. The occupation itself becomes a nightmare. This is why most analysts believe Xi Jinping isn't suicidal enough to invade, yet. But yet is doing a lot of work in that sentence. The window of Chinese military superiority is widening. The U.S. is distracted by domestic politics and multiple global crises simultaneously. Taiwan is scrambling to build its defenses faster. It's a race, and the world is pretending it isn't happening. Here's my honest take, and I mean honest, not hot take theater, but what I actually believe after looking at this seriously. The world's treatment of Taiwan is a moral failure dressed up as pragmatism, full stop. We built an international system after World War II on specific principles: self-determination, sovereignty, democracy over authoritarianism. And then we quietly exempted Taiwan from all of it because China is too big, too nuclear, too economically entangled. Every government that refuses to recognize Taiwan is making the same calculation. Beijing's market is worth more than Taipei's democracy. They're not wrong about the math. They're just wrong about what that math costs in the long run. It tells every authoritarian government on the planet, if you're big enough, the rules don't apply to you. It tells democracies everywhere, we will abandon you the moment standing up for you becomes expensive. It tells 23 million Taiwanese people, your political choices don't matter, your identity doesn't matter, your future is ours to negotiate. That is a monstrous message, and we've been sending it for 50 years and calling it foreign policy. So what happens next? There are three realistic scenarios, and none of them are comfortable. Scenario 1. The status quo holds. The ambiguity continues. China postures but doesn't invade. Taiwan remains de facto independent. Nobody resolves anything. The can keeps getting kicked down the road. This is the most likely scenario in the short term. But it requires China to stay rational, the U.S. to stay engaged, and Taiwan to stay cautious. Three variables. Any one breaking changes everything. Scenario 2. Some kind of negotiated autonomy deal. A new framework. Not one country, two systems. That brand is destroyed. But something. A guaranteed autonomy treaty. A new international status. This seems almost impossible given current dynamics. Xi Jinping has staked his legacy on reunification. Taiwan has zero reason to trust Beijing after Hong Kong. The Taiwanese public wouldn't vote for any leader who negotiated away their democracy. Scenario 3. Military conflict. China decides the window is closing and moves. This is what keeps defense planners in Washington, Tokyo, and Canberra awake at night. The economic devastation would be global, the human cost staggering, and the outcome of the conflict itself is genuinely uncertain. A Chinese invasion doesn't automatically succeed. The Taiwan Strait is a brutal killing ground, but a failed invasion is nearly as catastrophic as a successful one. The world isn't ready for any version of Scenario 3, and that unreadiness might be what prevents it or what enables it. Here's what I want you to take away from all of this. Taiwan isn't just a geopolitical puzzle, it's a mirror. It reflects back to us exactly what the international system prioritizes and what it is willing to sacrifice. A country that doesn't officially exist has built one of the world's most advanced economies and one of Asia's most robust democracies. It fields a military that punches far above its weight. It holds a passport that opens doors across the globe. 23 million people have built something genuinely worth protecting, and the world's response has been, "We'll get back to you on that." The question of Taiwan won't stay unresolved forever. At some point, the world will have to face what it's been pretending isn't there. A country on an island in the Pacific that runs on defiance, semiconductors, and a diplomatic status that shouldn't work, but somehow does. That's the story of Taiwan, and that's the context that's been missing. If this video made you see Taiwan differently, share it. Drop your take in the comments. Disagree with me? Even better. I read everything. Hit subscribe if you want the world's most overlooked stories explained properly, without the spin. Context missing, because the story you're not getting is usually the one that matters most. See you in the next one.